So you can understand why all the lines were so long and there were so many people, and it was very hot. But it was, I don't regret going. It was worth it. It was fun to go see all the different, even from the outside, to see all the pavilions. They all had very unique architecture, and yeah, it was fun. It was good to say that I've been to the expo. But yeah, when I saw that number, 177,000, I was like, wow, okay, that's a lot of people at one event. So yeah. So anyhow, I had a good time in Osaka, and I think I'd be happy to go back there again. Many people have always told me that Osaka people are a lot like Taiwan people. They're much more relaxed and friendly and helpful and noisy. Yeah. No, seriously. In Tokyo, I'm sure some of you have been to Tokyo. If you ride the subway, like the MRT train, very quiet. But if you go to Osaka, everybody's talking, right? So it's a very different environment. Yeah. So I like Osaka. It's good. Okay, good. So anyhow, I thought this would be a very interesting article. I like architecture. Like I said, when I went to the expo, I was looking at the architecture. Well, you know what does everybody know what architecture means? Yeah, like the design of a building, right? So an architect is someone who designs a building, right? Like, of course, there was an architect for this building, but then we have architecture, okay? That's the study of buildings, or, and then, yeah, so if you say the architecture of that building is beautiful, right? Or I like architecture. When we say I like architecture in general, it just means I like the study, building design. Okay, so this article actually is not talking about a building, it's talking about a bridge. And I'm sure you've heard about this bridge. When I was flying back from Osaka, it was a very clear day. And my plane, sometimes the planes land from the north and sometimes they land from the south in Italian. Well, this time my plane landed from the north. And I could look out my window and I could see this bridge. And right up the Danshui River to Taipei Yiling-yi, it was very clear. It was a really good view. I took a picture of it. But yeah, the bridge, of course, is huge. And I didn't actually realize that this bridge was designed by a world famous architect who I've heard of before. I know this architect, right? I've heard of them. So let's read this. It says, President Lai attends Danjiang Bridge ceremony. Okay, so the bridge is not open yet, but it's almost done. Okay, it says world-class design. CNN has listed the new bridge as one of the top 11 architecture, there's that word, projects set to shape the world this year, President William Lai said. So it's considered, one of the world's, leading architectural projects. It says to shape the world. So people will really pay attention to this building. So once again, let's say that word, architect. Now remember, the CH is not a ch, it's a K sound. So once again, architect. And then this word, architecture. Architecture. Okay, so let's read this article. It says, the much anticipated Danjiang Bridge is scheduled to open for traffic on May 12 next year, after the final bridge segment was successfully installed yesterday, the Ministry of Transportation and Communications said yesterday. Okay, so first of all, I know we've talked about this before, but when you say something is much anticipated, this becomes these two words, there's a hyphen, so these two words are put together and they become a 形容词, right, an adjective. What does much anticipated mean? People are, yeah, look, and so there's actually another way of saying this. Sometimes people will say the long awaited. Okay, so, await, to await means to wait for, right? If you're waiting for something, you say to await or to wait for. Okay, so if you say long awaited, it means people have been looking forward to it, or looking or waiting for something for a very long time. And anticipate, of course, also means to look forward to, right? If you say I am anticipating, I am looking forward to, which is another good way to say something. I'm looking forward to, oops, that's a AR. Okay. I'll give you an example. Every day almost I drive up Taiwan Dao, and I've been looking at Xinguang Sanyue, and I'm thinking, when is this building going to reopen? And then finally in the news they said this month, right? They're going to reopen. So I said, well, I've been looking forward to the reopening of Xinguang Mitsukoshi department store, or we could say the much anticipated reopening of Xinguang Sanyue, or the long awaited reopening of Xinguang Sanyue. So these words can be used in this way to describe that idea that you're waiting for something and you're looking forward to it. Okay? So why don't we say together, looking forward to. Looking forward to. Okay, long awaited. Long awaited. Much anticipated. Much anticipated. Right. You know, looking forward to is a very common expression. We often say, I'm looking forward to meeting you tomorrow, right? I'm looking forward to our class next week. You know, something that it's positive. It's a good thing, right? Okay, so it's scheduled to open for traffic. Okay, of course, traffic doesn't mean like traffic jams, but it means for people using it, for cars to go across it. And the final bridge segment was successfully installed. What is a segment? A section, yeah. So we could say section, you know, S-E-T-I-O-N, a part of, you know, a segment of something. And we can use that word, gets used for many things. We could use a talk about a video, a segment of a video. We could talk about a segment of anything that there's a part or piece of something. Okay, so why don't we say together segment? Segment. Okay, so it was installed. It was put into place. You know, when you install something, you put it together or you put it in place. Okay, so let's read this then. The much anticipated Danjiang Bridge. Let's say it again. Much anticipated Danjiang Bridge is scheduled to open for traffic on May 12 next year. After the final bridge segment was successfully installed yesterday, the Ministry of Transportation and Communications said yesterday. Okay. So it says here, President William Lai and other officials attended a ceremony yesterday in which they witnessed the closure of the main bridge span. Okay, so here's another word. Span is the idea of crossing over something, right? So we can use the word span as a 动词. We can say this. We can say the bridge spans the river. It means the bridge crosses over the river, or the bridge spans the highway. You know, like in Taichung over in Xitun, they have the red bridge, you know, the red bridge and the blue bridge. And we can say those bridges span the freeway, right? They go over the freeway, okay? But here, span is used as a 名词, and it usually means a part, again, like a segment. Remember, we just said the word segment or section. It's a span of a bridge. It means a piece of the bridge or a section of the bridge, okay? So why don't we say together, span? Span. Right, remember, it can be a noun or a verb. It's not spam. Of course, spam is something very different, right? S-P-A-M. I like spam. Now, we've talked about this before. There's two kinds of spam. There's the spam that you eat, right? And then there's the spam that shows up in your email box, right? Inbox. You know what the spam you eat, you know what that is, right? It's like a processed meat that's a little bit like ham, like 火腿. And spam, I think I've shared this with you before, but spam is very famous because during World War II, 二次大战, you know, the U.S. military, you know, they sent spam to their soldiers, you know, huge amounts of spam. And what happened was that wherever the U.S. military went, the local people started eating spam. So it's very, very, it's still popular today in places where there's a lot of U.S. military. Like the South Pacific, especially Hawaii. In Hawaii, they love Spam and everything. They like Spam in their, like one of my favorite things is, in Taiwan, they have fan tuan, right? In Hawaii, they have Spam musubi, which is they take a fan tuan and they add Spam and then they use the hai tai to wrap it up. And it's really, really good. All the 7-Elevens sell it. I wish they had it in Taiwan. But I remember I asked my Japanese friends, I said, how do you say Spam? And they said spam. But yeah, so the Japanese like Spam. The Koreans like Spam. They put it in their mian, their pao mian. If you go to like South Pacific, they eat Spam. So it's a very popular food. And I like it. Some people don't like it, but I like it. But Spam, of course, is also when you get junk mail in your email box, right? Emails that you didn't ask for, and they're just trying to, sometimes they're trying to pin you or they're trying to sell you something, and we call that spam. So yeah. Okay, but anyhow, we're not talking about spam, we're talking about a span. Okay, so here it says they attended a ceremony yesterday in which they witnessed, of course they watched the closure of the main bridge span. Now, closure, of course, usually means to, close it, to shut it down. But here, of course, it means that, when you have a gap, right? When you're building a bridge, you're adding sections, and then there's a gap, right? That's still open between the two sides. And then you close the gap with that final span. Okay, does everybody understand my idea? Yeah. Helong. Okay. To close the span, okay, to complete it, okay? So why don't we say together, closure. Closure. And of course, closure, we use it in many ways, like we can say the closure of the school, right? Means it was closed. It becomes a 名词, right? It means to close, yes. No, well, you could say if it was a drawbridge, the bridge closed. But this is not a drawbridge, of course. This is just, they're building the bridge, and then there's an open space, and they're closing that gap, okay? Well, they've been working on this for a long time, so it's been under construction for at least a few years. But yeah, so the gap is, you close the gap. So if there's a gap between you and me, and we close the gap, it means now there's no gap, right? So gap means a space, right? An open space, okay? Okay, so anyhow, let's read, let's read this. President William Lai and other officials attended a ceremony yesterday in which they witnessed the closure of the main bridge span. Span. Right. Okay. So let's go on. It says, the bridge, which connects New Taipei City's Danshui and Bali districts, would help ease the traffic on Guandu Bridge by 30%, and that on Highway number 2 by 17%, Lai told the participants at the ceremony. So, I mean, if you've ever been to Danshui, there's that big gap, and over there is Bali. And I know before you take a boat, there's a little ferry, right, that goes back and forth. You can ride over there, but now in the future, you can just drive there. So, of course, I always have to tell my foreign friends that this word, it's a very strange spelling. It's an old spelling that they still use today, and it's not. So a lot of Waigorren, when they see this, they say Tam Sui, right? But it's not. Of course, it's Dan Sui, right? But the way they spell it is they use this old English spelling for Dan Sui. This is the same spelling they've been using for maybe, but it's actually that's probably closer. Yeah, is it M with an M? Is it Dam? Okay. Yeah, but they, if you look at a lot of romanization in Taiwan, just like Donghai, right? It's instead of, they spell with a T. So anyhow, there's a lot of different, we call those romanization systems, like Hainyu Pinyin or Wade Giles or whatever. So anyhow, okay, so let's read this. The bridge, which connects New Taipei City's Danshui and Bali districts would help ease the traffic on Guandu Bridge by 30%, and that on Highway number 2 by 17%. Lai told the participants at the ceremony. Okay, so then that's a photo. And then down here it says, it would also facilitate journeys to New Taipei City's Linkou district, downtown areas in Taipei and New Taipei City, and Taiwan Taoyuan International Airport. That's actually something interesting because I didn't really think about that. But if you're coming from a certain direction, you want to get to the Taoyuan Jichang, this road would probably be quicker if you went around that side, right, to come up into Taoyuan, to the airport. But yeah, yeah, so I guess it's good. So there's a word here, to facilitate. What does that mean? Yeah, to make it happen or to make it easier, right? So we could say smartphones facilitate our communication with each other, right? Or you could say, what else? Yeah, facilitator would be it's a very specific word, but it's like someone who kind of runs things, it keeps things going, right? Or to make things happen, right? A facilitator is a person. But yeah, everything, we can use this word in many different ways. We could say a library facilitates learning, right? It helps people to learn, okay? So it's a good word. Why don't we say together, facilitate. Facilitate. So basically it means it will help or will ease or assist journeys to New Taipei City's Linkou district, downtown areas, and also the airport. Okay, so let's read this. It would also facilitate journeys. Again, facilitate journeys to New Taipei City's Linkou district. Linkou district. Downtown areas in Taipei and New Taipei City, and Taiwan Taoyuan International Airport, he said. Okay, so this is where I was impressed because this architect is very famous. She's no longer alive, but she still has her company. This architectural company still uses her name. It's a company she started. So I'll read this. It says, designed by the late Iraqi-British architect Zaha Hadid, the bridge would serve not only as transportation infrastructure, but also as an architectural work of art, Lai said, adding that the bridge design was inspired by dances performed by Taiwan's Cloud Gate dance troupe and the sunset at Danshui. Okay, so first of all, it says here, this is the Zaha Hadid, the architect. It's a woman, actually. What does it mean when it says late? Yeah, it means they're no longer alive. Okay, so if we say the late, President, Richard Nixon. Okay, it means he's no longer alive. He's not here anymore. Okay, so that word "late" gets added to the description. Sometimes people, if there's somebody that's very famous that they like, they might say that. Often I've heard sometimes they say the late great so and so, right? So they say someone who's late but also very great. Okay, so anyhow, it says the late Iraqi. Now she's British, but she's also Iraqi British. Her family or her, I don't know if she was born there, but from Iraq. Yeah, British architect Zaha Hadid. It's very interesting. The first time I saw her name was, I don't know if you remember this, when Hu Zhiqiang was trying to get designs for the Guggenheim Museum in Taichung, and she came up. Her company also had a design for Taichung. But if you've seen her designs, they're very unique. They're very flowing. They have this very natural kind of flowing, lots of curving lines and flowing. Yeah, a very interesting design, very distinct architecture. Okay, yes. What happened was the Taichung Yihui said, we don't have any money for this. So it's really a shame. I feel like that was a missed opportunity for Taichung, because Guggenheim said yes. They said, okay, we'll come to Taichung. But I think it was the Taichung Shi Yihui, they said, too expensive, we're going to lose money on it. But I think that, this is my opinion, but I think that when you have a big project like that, sometimes the government just says, oh, we're going to lose money, going to quay. But you have to think about the impact of a museum like that on the whole city, right? If you have a Guggenheim museum, people will come to Taichung, people will know Taichung. It's like a promotion, like a 广告 for Taichung. So you can't just say, oh, it's too expensive or we're going to lose money. Maybe, yeah, sure, maybe you'll lose some money at the beginning, but long term, it will bring people to Taichung. It'll promote Taichung. Just like long time ago when I went to Spain, I went to Bilbao, and nobody knows Bilbao until they built a Guggenheim there. They built a Guggenheim museum in Bilbao, and then it became very famous because of that museum. So anyhow, it's a bit of a 可惜, that they didn't do that. Yeah. So anyhow, so why don't we say it again? Architect Zaha Hadid. Okay. So this bridge will serve not only as, okay. So here's, when we say for our grammar, we often say not only something, but also, okay. Not only, I not only like chocolate, but I also like ice cream, okay? So we often use this, not only, but also, okay? This is a very common usage in grammar. Okay, so it will serve not only as transportation infrastructure. Now, what's infrastructure mean? We've talked about, yeah. So sometimes I say it's like hardware, right? It's something you can touch or see, like a bridge, an airport, a road, anything that's there, like it's something that government or somebody builds. Like right now, Taichung is finally building their 缆线, their subway line, and that's infrastructure. Okay, so why don't we say together, infrastructure, infrastructure. So it's going to serve not only for that, but also as an architectural work of art. Now, this is, of course, we know that word, but work of art is a very common expression. It means something that's artistic, it's beautiful, it's a piece of art. Sometimes we can simply say artwork, right? One word, artwork. Like if you go over here to the the cultural center, right? The Taichung Wenhuaju, you can see many artworks. Or you could say I can see many works with an S, works of art, okay? So, sometimes when somebody builds something like a bridge, of course, a bridge is a bridge, right? But then because it's very beautiful, you say, wow, that's a real work of art, okay? Or someone puts up a skyscraper, a tall building. And of course, it's a building and people live there or work there, but because it's very beautiful, because the architecture is beautiful, you say that building is a work of art, right? It's like a piece of art. Okay, so why don't we say this together? Architectural work of art. Right, okay. So I added that the bridge design was inspired by the dances performed by, Cloudgate dance troupe, right? Yeah, that's very famous, world famous. And then, of course, the sunset at Danshui. I saw the news. I was watching TV news the other day, and they said that Taiwanese photographers are already trying to figure out the best angle, to take a picture of the bridge with the sunset and everything, because it makes a very good image. So the TV news was telling people where are the best places to take photographs of the bridge. Where can you go to get a good view of the bridge? And of course, the sunset. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be honest, when I heard they were building a bridge, I was a little bit, I don't know, I was a little bit concerned because I thought it might disturb the view, you know, because you have the sunset and the river. But I think, you know, they seems like they've done a very good job with the view, the design, and the, you know, the architecture. Okay, so let's read this together. Designed by the late Iraqi British architect Let's say it again. Iraqi British architect Zaha Hadid. The bridge would serve not only as transportation infrastructure, but also as an architectural work of art. Okay, just one thing here, architectural. So this has, when we say architectural, that has a ch sound to it. Okay, so why don't we say it again, architectural work of art. Lai said. Adding that the bridge design was inspired by dances performed by Taiwan's Cloud Gate dance troupe. And the sunset at Danshui. Yeah, this word troupe, usually it means a tuan, like a group, right? But usually when we use that word troupe, it's usually just used for like art groups, you know, like performance groups, or like anything to do with 艺术 or, you know, 表演 or, you know, 文化 or something like that. They will use this word troupe. It's like a group, you know, like a 20, you know, like here we have the dance, Cloudgate dance troupe. I mean, we could say group, but their official name is troupe. Okay, so why don't we say this word again one more time? Troupe. Okay, now of course the word T-R-O-O-P, troop or troops, refers to soldiers, like, you know, 军人, right? But this is a different word, but it's pronounced the same. Okay, so yes. Yeah, so circus is like a 表演, right? So we say a circus troupe. It's like a group, a 20. It's pretty close. If you've been there, the road, you know, the highway comes. If you're standing, you know, in the Danshui, if you go there and you can walk along the river, right? And if you look out, it's at the very far end by the ocean, and it goes across we say the mouth of the river, right? The mouth of the river. You know, mouth is 嘴巴, right? So if you say a mouth of the river, it means the opening of the river, where the river meets the ocean. So we could say the bridge is near or by the mouth of the Danshui River. It's way out there. So yeah. It'll be fun to see that when it's done. Okay, it says CNN has listed the bridge as one of the top 11 architectural projects set to shape the world this year. Okay, he added. Okay, so, you know, when we say to shape the world, it means that people look at that and they say, wow, this is really important. Just like, you know, the Taichung 国家歌剧院, right? It was considered one of an architectural landmark when it was finished. So once again, Taiwan has one of these great architectural works. Okay, so let's read this. CNN has listed the bridge as one of the top 11 architecture projects set to shape the world this year, he added. Right. Now, when we say, you know, set to, it means it's prepared to, right? It's ready to. It hasn't happened yet. Of course, the bridge is not done yet. But when we say something is set to do something, it means it's ready to, it's prepared to, it's going to, you know, so set to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like Taipei 101. It's a It's a very unique architecture, and it has, it's not just like another, I say it's not another just a glass square. A lot of modern high-rise buildings are just glass boxes, right? And so there's not, you see one, and in English we say, once you've seen one, you've seen them all, right? It means like one looks like everyone else. So, but they're the same. So Taipei 101, when you see Taipei 101, you know it's Taipei 101, right? It doesn't look like anything else. Yeah, it has a kind of an Asian influence to the architecture. So yeah, I like Taipei 101. I think it's a good landmark or symbol of Taiwan. I like, I enjoy looking at architecture, especially high rise or skyscrapers. And I see now in Saudi Arabia, they're building the world's tallest building, and it's supposed to be over 1 kilometer tall, over 1,000公尺, which is huge, right? I've been up, I've been to Dubai, and I went up to the Dubai has the world's tallest building. I went up to the observation deck, and it's way up there. When you're standing up there looking down at the road below you, it's way down there. It's like being in an airplane. I don't think so, but but now this new building is even taller than that, so it's pretty amazing. So anyhow, so here it says the architecture demonstrates the resilience and spirit of Taiwanese and skillfulness of the construction team, Lai said. Now, this word here, resilience, what does that mean? Yeah, it also means basically strength, okay? Strength of something. So if we say this building is very resilient, it means it's strong, okay? So we add a T, right? If we want to make, this is a 名词, right? But if we want to turn this into a 形容词, we say resilient with an ENT, right? Resilient, okay? So, I'll give you an example. Recently, I've still been doing many跨文化训练, cross-cultural training with, 外国人 who are coming to Taichung to work. And of course, one of the most common questions I get that people like to ask is they say, so what should I do? Should I be concerned if there's a typhoon, typhoon? And I say, don't worry about it. I say, Taiwan the buildings are very resilient, right? They also ask about 地震, right? Earthquakes. What about earthquakes? And I say, don't worry about it. Taiwan's buildings, or I say, most of Taiwan's buildings are very resilient. Okay, they're very strong. They won't, fall over. They won't be damaged in a typhoon. They won't collapse in a earthquake. Yeah. So why don't we say together this word, resilience. Resilience. And then as a 形容词 with a T, resilient. Resilient. Right, okay. So of course, when we say the resilience and spirit of Taiwanese, it means the Taiwanese are strong. They have strength, right? We could say the strength and the spirit of the Taiwanese. It would be the same idea. Okay, so the building demonstrates that, or I think it would be better to say it symbolizes that. Okay, and of course, the skillfulness of the construction team. Something else, I don't know if this article mentions it, but I saw this in the local news. It said, this is the world's tallest single pillar suspension bridge. So this kind of bridge, I think you've probably seen this before. We call it a suspension bridge. Because if we say as a 动词 to suspend, what does that mean? To hang, right? So a suspension bridge, has a tower, right? And then it has these cables that keep the bridge up. Just like in San Francisco, you have the Golden Gate Bridge, right? That's a suspension bridge. But this bridge is the tallest one with one tower, just one single tower. There's not like 2 or 3 or 4. There's just one in the middle. So, so I thought that was kind of cool. But to suspend means to hang, to hang something. Just like if you say, it's very, I'm sure you know this, but, you say something is very suspenseful. Or we say suspense, or then we say suspenseful, okay? If you say I'm in suspense, or I'm very this is very suspenseful, what does that mean? Yeah, so I feel very what? Anxious, very 紧张, right? So if you say that movie was very suspenseful, it means I'm very anxious or very suspenseful. If a couple is going to have a baby, right, and they're very suspenseful, or we say in suspense because they're worried about the baby and they want to make sure the baby is healthy. So they're very anxious. Okay, so why do we use that word suspense or suspenseful for that feeling? It's because you're like hanging, right? You're waiting. You're hanging. You're waiting for something to happen, right? And so it's almost like you're hanging there waiting for something. So we say, I'm in suspense, or this is very suspenseful, okay? So one more, let's say these words together. To suspend. To suspend. Why don't we just say it this way? In suspense. In suspense. Suspenseful. Suspenseful. Suspension bridge. Suspension bridge. Right. Okay. So let's go back and read this paragraph. It says the architecture demonstrates the resilience and spirit of Taiwanese and skillfulness of the construction team, Lai said. Okay, so it says here the Highway Bureau failed to secure contractors after 7 tenders due to the technical challenges of building a single pylon cable-stayed bridge with a tower curving in all 3 dimensions. Some had suggested a 2-dimensional tower to be built. Fortunately, the government decided to follow the original bridge design. It would be an embarrassment if Taiwanese could not fulfill the vision of a world-class architect. Okay, so basically here, Zaha Hadid designed this bridge, and they had to find a company or someone to build the bridge, right? You have a design, now you have to build it. So it says here, the Highway Bureau failed to secure a contractor. Of course, a contractor is somebody who builds something, right? Like when you want to build a building, you have to find a company that will sign a contract, 合约, to build something. So we call that a contractor. Okay, why don't we say together, contractor? Okay, to secure contractors after 7 tenders. Now, this is a word that I don't think we've ever learned this word. Tender normally, what does tender normally mean? Yeah. Normally tender means soft, right? Like if a baby's skin is very tender, right? Or you can say I'm eating my chicken, it's very tender, right? But here this means, you said it's like 投标, right? So if you want to, if the government wants to have something, a project, they have to have companies have to go and 招标, right? So we can say to tender a bid, or you can say a tender is a 名词, or it can be a 动词. So a bid is also like to tender a bid. A bid means I bid. It means I want that project. I want to do that. And then the government will say, okay, how much will this cost? Or can you do this? So this word tender and bid, they're very related to each other, and they use together or they're used separately. We could say 7 tenders means the government put out a proposal, a plan, and then they said, here's how much, right? And nobody bid on it. And then they did it again, and nobody bid on it. So we can say they did this 7 times, and until they had to wait till the 7th tender, until somebody bid on it. Because why? Due to technical challenges. Okay. So why don't we say the word together? Tender. Tenders. Okay. Of building, what's the technical challenge? A single pylon. Okay, now pylon is like this part here. We call this a pylon. It's like a pillar. Sometimes we say pillar, right? But pylon is a word that we use a lot for bridges and architecture and buildings. It's usually a very heavy, very strong piece of a bridge or a building. We call it a pylon. Okay, so why don't we say together pylon? Pylon. So it's a single pylon, cable-stayed bridge. Now, what is a cable? Is what? Cable is this part here, right? These are cables. Now, when we say cable-stayed is just another word for saying supported. Cable supported, cable stayed. You know, the cables will hold the bridge in place. Okay, so we say single pylon, cable stayed bridge with a tower. The tower, of course, is the ta, right? Curving in all three directions. So it's like a three-dimensional. There's three, you know, sometimes we say 3D, right? 3D, three-dimensional. Okay, so the tower has three dimensions to it. Okay, but some companies had suggested a two-dimensional tower, like a 2D, two-dimensional tower instead of three-dimensional. But the government decided to stick with the original design. So I haven't really looked at the tower too closely, but I guess it has three dimensions to it. It's not just this way. Maybe it goes in more than one direction. So anyhow, it sounds very complex. Okay, any questions? Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Like what kind of signpost? Oh, yeah, I think you could say that. If, you know, sometimes in front of a store you have a big sign, right? And there's a pillar. We could call that a pylon. You know, it holds up the sign, you know. Yeah. Any other questions? Everybody understand this? Okay. So let's read this. The Highway Bureau failed to secure contractors after 7 tenders due to technical challenges of building a single pylon. Again, single pylon, cable-stayed bridge with a tower curving in all three dimensions. Some had suggested a two-dimensional tower be built. Fortunately, the government decided to follow the original bridge design. It would be an embarrassment if Taiwanese could not fulfill the vision of a world-class architect. Again, world-class architect, he said. You know, I know they had the same challenge when they built the 国家歌剧院. It was a very difficult construction. And so they had to find a company that was willing to take that project and willing to learn new techniques for construction. Because, you know, if you've been over there, everything is curving, right? It has lots of curves and the architecture is very unusual. So I think it was a similar kind of challenge, although this is probably even a bigger challenge. I just want to add something here. It says the Highway Bureau failed to secure contractors. Now, the word secure is normally a 形容词, right? You say, I feel very secure. But here, the secure is a 动词. It means to settle, to confirm, you know, 确定. If you secure something, it means you have it. It's yours. It's in your possession, right? So okay, let me give you an example. Let's say I am trying to find a sponsor, 赞助商 for my event. And I am looking for those sponsors. And then you can say, well, today I secured a new sponsor. It means I confirmed a new sponsor. This sponsor has agreed to support our event, to 赞助 our event, right? So I secured them. It means I got them. I confirmed them. So that's what this word secure means. It becomes a 动词, and it's not just a 形容词. Yeah. Does everybody understand that? You get that? Okay. Yeah, because that's another way to use that word. Okay. So it says here, Danjiang Bridge will be the first landmark that air travelers see when they fly over the area, he said. It depends. Because if you're landing from the south, Nambu, sometimes the airplane comes in and it flies around to the south. In fact, sometimes the airplane goes all the way down over Taichung and turns and then comes back over Hsinchu and then lands in Taoyuan. But if you're coming like I did from Daban, if you're coming from the north, then of course, and you're sitting on the left side of the airplane, then you can see the bridge. Yeah. So it says here, aside from Danjiang Bridge, Lai also pledged to support the construction of the Danbei Highway and the Danhai light rail, although he said that local governments might not receive much subsidies, okay, that's a word there, from the central government as they used to following the approval of amendments to the act governing the allocation of government revenues and expenditures. This is a very long word, okay, long expression. I think he's talking about, the Kuomintang and the Ximingdang are cutting the funding, right? So here, a landmark, you know what a landmark is, right? It's like a 地标. Like when we think of Taichung, we could say that 国家歌剧院 is a landmark, right? It's a landmark for Taichung. If you go to many cities, if you go to Paris, for example, what's their landmark? The Eiffel Tower, right? The Louvre, yeah, it's a landmark, but the Eiffel Tower is the biggest landmark in Paris. Yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. The Danjiang Bridge will be the first landmark that air travelers see when they fly over the area. He said, aside from Danjiang Bridge, Lai also pledged to support the construction of Danbei Highway and Danhai Light Rail. Although he said that local governments might not receive much subsidies from the central government as they used to, following the approval of amendments to the act governing the allocation of government revenues and expenditures. Let me just mention or review a couple words here. First of all, when it says aside from Danjiang Bridge, another way to say that would be besides. B-E-S-I-D-E-S. Besides Danjiang Bridge. But we could also say aside from Danjiang Bridge. Okay, so it means other than, besides, So we could say, if we want to use other words to say this, we could say other than, or we could say besides, okay, besides Danjiang Bridge, other than Danjiang Bridge, or aside from Danjiang Bridge. So these are all ways to say this, okay? So he pledged. What's another word for pledge? promise, right? He pledged, he promised to support the construction of these two projects, although he said local governments might not receive much subsidies. Now, I think do you remember what a subsidy is? Yeah, money from the government, like what do we say, 补助, right? It means to give money for something, okay? I was very happy. I told my sister that yesterday, I found out that if you have a 永久居留证 as a 外国人, you also get 1万块. I was waiting for this news. My friends were all like, do we get money too? And then the government said, if you're a 永久居留证 or your spouse, your husband or wife is Taiwan人, you also get 1万块. So I was like, yes. So yeah. A little, not subsidies, but they buy space in the magazine. So yeah, the 新闻局 and the 文化局, every year they've been very faithful in having, if you look in the magazine, there's a special section for the 文化局 and for the 新闻局. So yeah, I guess you could call that a kind of subsidy, but it's basically they buy space from us. Yeah. So yeah, so I guess we get our 1万块 in the next 1 or 2 months, right? Or sometime soon. Yeah. So that's good. I'm waiting for that. Yeah. So yeah. So anyhow, let's say that word together. Subsidies. Subsidies. Now, if you use this word as a 动词, we say to subsidize. Okay. Whoops. Yeah. Subsidize. So you can say the government is going to subsidize something. Okay. It becomes a 动词. So let's say it together. To subsidize. To subsidize. Okay, so it then says the approval of amendments. What's an amendment? Yeah, basically it's a change for a law or like the 宪法, right? The Constitution. We say to, now if you want to say as a 动词, we say to amend, right? So why don't we say together, to amend. To amend. And then as a 名词, amendments. Amendments. Okay, so to the act, of course, an act is a law, right? Governing means to supervise, to control, right? The allocation of government revenues and expenditures. What's to allocate mean? To distribute, to send out, to allocate. So if you allocate something, to allocate, that's LL. Sorry, that's a C. To allocate means to distribute, to give out, right? If you have money and someone says, well, how are you going to allocate this money? It means, how are you going to give it out? How are you going to spend it? How are you going to use it? Okay? So why don't we say together, to allocate. To allocate. Allocation. Allocation. Okay, so what are they allocating? They're allocating government revenue. Revenue, what's another word for revenue? Income, yeah, money that comes in. And what is expenditures? Spending, right? Like expense, right? If you have an expense, you can say, what was your expense for your airplane ticket? How much did you spend? So as a 名词, we say that expenditure. You can say this year our expenditures are much higher or much lower. Okay, so why don't we say together, expenditures. Expenditures. Okay, let's just read maybe one more paragraph and then we'll go to a new story. He says, local governments would have to shoulder more responsibility now they have more funding at their disposal. I hope that both the ruling and opposition parties work together to find solutions to the problems with the act to ensure balanced and sustainable development of different localities, Lai said. Okay, now I think we've studied this before, but when you shoulder something, what does that mean? Yeah, to take 收责任, right? To take response. So this is your shoulder, right? But it means to carry something, to take responsibility. So one way this word gets used sometimes is if you say, I will take the blame for this. Let's say there was a 错误 or a mistake or a problem, and you say, I will shoulder the blame for that problem. It means I will take the blame. I will take the responsibility for that problem or that accident or whatever. Okay, so we say to shoulder the blame. Okay, but here it's to shoulder more responsibility. Okay, so shoulder becomes a 动词. It's not just a 名词 for this. Okay, so why don't we say together, shoulder. Shoulder. Okay, it says they will have to shoulder more responsibility now. Actually, if it was me, I would say now that they have more funding at their disposal. Now, when we say something is at your disposal, what does that mean? Yeah, it means I have more that I can use, or I can decide how to use it, right? So if you say, if someone asks you, how much money do you have at your disposal right now? And you say, well, I have, 2,000 块 in my pocket, right? I have 2,000 NT. It means I have this money that is available to spend, okay? So if something is at your disposal, it means it's available for you to use, okay? Does everybody understand that? Because dispose means to put out, to throw. Sometimes we say to throw away or throw out, but it can also mean to get rid of, right? So we when we spend money, of course, we're disposing of that money. We're giving it out. Okay, so why don't we say this together? At their disposal. At their disposal. Okay, so it says here, of course, he hopes the ruling and opposition parties, of course, the Minjingdang and the Kuomintang, work together to find solutions to the problems with the act to make sure balance and sustainable development. Of course, sustainable means we can keep going, right? It won't stop. And balance, of course, means, balance. Okay, of different localities. Now, locality is another way of saying different what? Local governments or just local areas. Locality would be a local area or a place, right? If someone says, what locality do you come from in Taiwan? You say, oh, I come from Taichung City, or I come from Nantou County, or something like that. It's a local region or area, a locality. Okay, so why don't we say together, localities. Localities. Okay, so let's read this, and then I think we'll probably go to a different article. Local governments would have to shoulder more responsibility. Now they have more funding at their disposal. Disposal. I hope that both the ruling and opposition parties work together to find solutions to the problems with the act to ensure balanced and sustainable development of different localities. Lai said. Right. So, so there's a lot of projects that Taiwan is building, and, that's good. I will say that, yeah. Yeah, that's a very, I was looking at the newspaper today to see if there was any articles about that, but there weren't any articles in the Taipei Times today. But I think you all know about the news about Charlie Kirk, right? Yeah, so he was assassinated. He was murdered. Unfortunately, it was a really, yeah. No, I think it's a great tragedy, right, for America when you have somebody like him who's very, what Charlie Kirk, his whole philosophy was that we need to talk or debate things peacefully, right? And if we can talk to each other, and if we can debate peacefully, you know what debate means, right? well, 辩论, right? It means to debate. Argue has a different feeling to it. Argue means like you're 吵架, right? But debate is 辩论, right? It's to have a discussion, right? So, he felt like if we can talk to each other, then we won't fight each other, right? We can have a discussion, we can talk. And so, I think if you've read about Charlie Kirk, he was famous for going to, I think, over 800 university, 大学 campuses. And if you've watched his video, if you go to YouTube, you can watch many, many, many of his videos. And he just sits there, usually in a table, and he welcomes anybody to come up to the microphone and debate him. And of course, people will come up and they'll have different ideas or things. And of course, Charlie Kirk was very conservative, 很保守. And he was a very big supporter of Donald Trump and the 共和党. So of course, his viewpoint, his perspective, his ideas were very conservative towards many things. But he would always debate people. People would come up to him and say, well, what about this? Or I think this, or what about, and he would have a discussion with them. And so it was very interesting. Of course, he's really, really smart guy and very, we say articulate. If someone is very articulate, actually that's a good word, articulate. Yeah. So articulate, or we can say, okay, so actually, this is a very interesting word. You can use it as a 动词 or a 名词, but it's a word that we say differently. So if you say someone is as a 形容词 articulate, it means 很会讲话, right? They know how to speak. But if you want to express something, you say, I'm trying to express my ideas, then it becomes a 动词. And then we pronounce this as to articulate my ideas. So if someone says, well, I have this strong feeling, you say, well, okay, can you articulate your ideas to me? It means, can you express or can you communicate your ideas to me? And we pronounce it as to articulate, okay? But as a 形容词, we say, he is very articulate. You hear the difference? Articulate. Okay? It's similar. Eloquent means eloquent means you're also very good with words. You're very good with speaking. Eloquent. So if someone is very articulate or very eloquent, it means, they're similar. Eloquent means your words are beautiful. Articulate means you're good at expressing yourself. You're good at speaking. Okay? So why don't we say this as first as a 形容词. Is articulate. Is articulate. And then let's use it as a 动词. To articulate. To articulate. And then this is the other word he mentioned, eloquent. Eloquent. Right, so if we say he speaks very eloquently, it means he speaks very beautifully, very well, okay? So yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk, I think he was good at articulating his ideas, and he was quite eloquent. He was good at speaking. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I agree with probably many of the things he says, but many people did not agree with him. But the thing that's important about Charlie Kirk was that he was okay with that. If you disagree with him, that's fine. He's going to argue for his side, but if you want to disagree with me, that's okay. It's not like everyone has to agree with him, right? So that's the whole point. I think the big problem in America, in like you can see, is that, well, not just America, I think in many places, is that some people, not all people, but some people feel like I'm right and you're not just wrong, but you're evil. No, seriously. Because I'll tell you what the difference is. If we're having a debate, we're having a discussion, and I say, I'm right and you're wrong, and of course you say, I'm right and you're wrong, okay, well, we disagree. But if I say, I'm right and you're evil, what's the difference? it gives me the right to do something to you. Because if someone's evil, you know the word evil, right? E-V-I-L. If someone is evil, well, then maybe I think, well, then I can harm them. I can kill them. I can take them out, right? Because they're evil. Just like we, in the world we see like a 犯罪人 or something, we say, well, they're evil. We have to stop them, right? We have to shut them down. And so if you believe that your opponent, the person who you disagree with, is not only wrong, but they're evil, then that's a problem. Okay. What? Poisonous. Well, we could say someone has poisonous ideas, right? We don't usually say they are poisonous, but we can say their ideas are poisonous. But there's another problem, I think, and sometimes in the way of some people think today, is that they think that words are violence. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but if I think that your words are violence against me, well, then I can attack you, right? And of course, traditionally, that's not the way we think. We think words are expressions of ideas. We should have free speech. You can say what you want to say, and I can say what I can and we exchange ideas openly, and that's fine. That's normal. But if I start to think that your speech is violence against me, well, then I can respond with violence against you. Your words are an attack on me, so I will use violence to respond to you. And I think that's a big problem today with some people in the United States and other places, is they think that their opponents are evil, and they think that words are violence. And that will justify, that gives them an excuse to use violence or, harm against somebody else. To attack. Well, it depends on what your perspective is, right? If you're coming from the very far left, of course he's a radical. But if you're coming from the conservative, 保守派, he's not a radical. He's just promoting things that you believe, or your parents believe, or your grandparents believe, and it's it's not radical. It's conservative. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he was very, very influential in the election, the 选举. But he's been especially very influential with young people. Young people have really, really, because he goes to university campuses and he talks to students. And, if you watch the videos, there's some people that really, really hate him. I mean, they really are against him. But he will talk to them, right? He'll just sit there and have a discussion with them. And people, they will scream at him. But he was always very calm. Very just calm and saying, okay, well, what do you think? And here's why I disagree with you. And people respect that, right? People, I think not, of course, he was killed for that, but people say that's what we need. We need an exchange. We need an exchange of ideas. We need to have a civil discussion, right? If we say something is civil, it means it's civilized, right? So we need to have a civil discussion. Or we could say an exchange of ideas. We could say civil, open exchange of ideas. Because what happens if we can't exchange ideas in a civil way? We start fighting. We start hurting each other, right? People can't agree. Sometimes in America we say we agree to disagree, right? You have your view, I have my view, okay, we agree to disagree. We know you have I know that you're not going to change your mind, I'm not going to change my mind. That's okay, that's fine. And we can have a civil discussion, yeah. Conservative? Yeah, I've definitely leaned towards conservative. Yeah, definitely, yeah. So yeah, I would, yeah, for a very long time, I've always been that way. Well, I'm not. Yeah, my friends who know me well definitely know I'm not. I wouldn't describe myself as liberal. I'm very conservative. I'm conservative. I wouldn't say I'm super conservative, but I'm into. Most Americans would describe themselves as being in the middle, but middle doesn't mean neutral. Middle means that your view is not extreme, right? You're not far right, you're not far left, you're kind of in the middle. And so, yeah, I think most Americans would say, well, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not extremist. I'm not in the extreme.
After hearing Charlie Kirk's speeches,
Mm-hmm.
I begin to think maybe it's not bad to be conservative.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think so. Here's what's again, this is my perspective, but a lot of people say that in America there's a sense among many Americans, not all Americans, but many Americans, that some of these we say liberal or progressive or left has gone too far to the left, and they feel like they want to bring things back more towards the middle. So some people they think it's not, for example, some people say, well, for example, the Democrat Party they say, well, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me, right? It moved to the left, and I'm still in the middle. So, then if I'm still in the middle and the party has moved to the left, well, then what does that mean? So again, that's one perspective. I'm sure that many people in the Democrat Party don't feel that way, but I'm saying that there are many Americans, but it's very interesting. After Charlie Kirk's death, there has been some very big demonstrations in places in other parts of the world. I saw a huge demonstration in London. Some people say up to 1 million people, demonstrating because they want to they're come from a more conservative perspective, right? And they say we want to protect our traditional values and our traditional, the way it is. But I even saw there was a demonstration in Seoul, Korea, Hanguo, and they had signs that said "We are Charlie Kirk," and they were waving American flags and Korean flags, and yeah, so I think that there is definitely a conservative comeback, yeah, in places like England, like the UK, Germany, France, and other places where people just say, I'm not comfortable with the way things are today, and I think they should change. Now, these are very controversial subjects, but one that comes up a lot in these discussions is immigration, right? So a lot of people feel like we don't need more immigrants, we want to stop that. Other people say, well, there's a difference between legal immigration and undocumented or illegal immigration, right? So that's a debate. What is there a difference, or they're the same, or what? And so I think that because the world has been under a lot of change in the last 10 years, lots of immigrants coming into places all over Europe, and of course that creates a lot of social stress and tension with the people who already live there, and these are normal things. They will happen, and so then of course there will be a response, a reaction in many cases. But yeah, so Charlie Kirk, he would talk about a lot of these issues, and I think that people, some people loved him and some people hated him. But I think the key was even the people, not all, of course, but even a lot of the people who didn't agree with him respected him, right? They respected his exchange of ideas with them. And I think that's what he wanted Americans to learn, is that we need to learn how to talk to each other and not fight each other. And that was very important. Now, I think it's very interesting in watching the news in the last few days is more conservatives are upset about some conservatives, of course, they're very upset about his murder, but they're very upset about something else, and that is some people, not a lot, but I think some people were celebrating his death. And this really made people angry, because they were on social media celebrating, cheering, saying, I'm so happy he's dead. In fact, some people said they had a list. There's like, okay, he's dead, now who's next, And that's a terrible thing, right? You can't do that, right? You can't cheer somebody, even if you disagree with them, you think they're completely wrong. You can't celebrate and say, I'm so happy they're dead, And so, so I think that really shocked a lot of people. And they said, and if you watch the news today, actually a lot of Americans, I shouldn't say a lot, but a number of Americans have been fired from their jobs because they went onto social media, like, Facebook or some TikTok or something, and they said, oh, I'm so happy, he's dead, I'm celebrating, and then of course their employer found out about this, and they said, okay, sorry, you're gone, you're out of there. Actually, a lot of them were teachers, and they were celebrating this, and of course their schools said that's not acceptable, so you're gone, you're fired. So I think that it's a time of, I think what I really hope comes out of the death of Charlie Kirk is that it makes all Americans stop and think that we need to have a discussion, that we need to have a civil discussion, exchange of ideas, instead of using violence against each other. Unfortunately, America has a history of assassinations, right? People do get, of course, somebody tried to shoot Donald Trump, right? And then, of course, we've had presidents like Abraham Lincoln and J.F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy and other presidents who have been assassinated. And, of course, Martin Luther King, right? And Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy's brother. These are tragedies in American history. But I think, again, I think most Americans want to come back to this situation where we can talk to each other and exchange ideas. When I was younger in America, they used to have these TV programs that were very popular. There was at least 2 shows that were very popular. And the whole program was there was a host, right? And then they would get 2 people from 2 different sides. One would be usually like 共和党, very conservative, and one would be 民主党. And they would put them in together, and they would辩论. They would have a debate over different subjects. They would say, okay, here's the subject. What do you think? And they would talk to each other. Crossfire was one, and then there was another one called what was it called? It had a funny name. No, it was a lesser known show, but Crossfire was a very popular show. Yeah, maybe. There's probably more than 2. There's probably others as well. But it was a really great show because these 2 guys, or men or women from different perspectives, would have this really good debate. But the cool thing was they were friendly to each other, right? They could have a good discussion, and at the end of the discussion, they could shake hands, and that would be it. That would be fine. And I think a lot of Americans miss that. They think that's what I need. That's what we want. People can have a good discussion, and then, everyone can watch it and say, okay, do I agree or disagree, or what do I think? I will say this, and I've said this before. I think one of the biggest problems with our society today, or where the problem is coming from, is social media. I strongly believe that, because every social media, and actually a lot of technology, there are formulas and algorithms that will divide people, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm very conservative, 保守, right? And I go onto YouTube and I start watching conservative videos. What does YouTube do? It just gives me more and more conservative videos, right? Now, if I'm the opposite, if I'm very liberal, right, and I like to watch liberal videos, it'll just give me more and more of that. And it won't give me the other things. It won't give me the other perspectives. Every social media does that. It gives you what you like, right? Whatever you like, it gives you more of that, and it doesn't give you anything else. So what does that do? That creates a situation where all I'm hearing is my own perspective, and I'm not hearing someone else's perspective. And what does that do? That just starts to divide people more and more. I'm right, you're evil, and that's what happens. And then people start killing each other, shooting each other, right? And that's not healthy for democracy. And so, the word that we often use for that kind of situation, we call that an echo chamber. You know what an echo is, right? Okay, so a chamber is like a room, right? So if you're in a room and you're shouting or talking and all you hear is the echo of your own words, it means you're only hearing what you say, right? It's echoing back at you. So an echo chamber, we say that social media and technology today creates an echo chamber where that all I hear is my own views and my own perspectives. I don't hear anybody else's. So, whenever I talk to, sometimes I go to talk to universities in Taiwan. I go to talk to 大学生. I always tell them, I say, my biggest advice to you is when you get your information, make sure you get it from as many sources as possible. Don't get all your information from 1 or 2 sources. Listen to different kinds of media. Try out other If you read this newspaper, then read that newspaper. If you watch that TV station, then watch that TV station. Get your information from many different sources, if possible, because if you don't, it becomes an echo chamber. All you hear is the same voice, the same perspective, and then you become more and more, actually become more and more radical. More people on the right become more right, people on the left become more left, and pretty soon there's nobody in the middle anymore. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if you create Google, if you work for Google or YouTube or TikTok or whatever, your job is to give people what they want, right? You know, if I like watching YouTube videos about, you know, 可爱的小狗狗 or kitty cats, they're going to give me more and more videos like that, right? Which makes me want to watch it more, right? So that's the way they work, right? If you like it, they'll give you more, you know, and then you'll watch it more, right? That's the way that those social medias work. And so I think that's you know, that sometimes that's good. You know, if I like I love airplanes, so if I like airplane videos, it'll show me more airplane videos. But if I'm looking at politics, you know, like 政治, or I'm trying to get a different viewpoints, that's not good because I'm only getting the viewpoint that I like or support. And so I think that's the biggest problem today is that, you know, and of course a lot of media is not balanced either, right? In Taiwan and also in Meikuo, if someone says, I ask you, I say, what TV station do you watch? I can tell you, I know if you're 蓝色 or 绿色, you know, or 共和党 or 民主党, I can tell because those medias are very biased. They lean towards one way or the other, and that's not good either, right? I went to journalism school. You know, I studied 新闻. You know, my major was 新闻系. And when I was at university, they told you over and over and over again, your personal viewpoint should not go into the article. When you write an article, it should never have your own perspective. It should be balanced. Even if you hate, personally, if I hate what that other side is saying, I still need to give them a fair chance to share their perspective, even if I disagree. What? Should not be biased as a news reporter. So I remember my professor told me, what if this is, you know, 比方, you know, if you know, 假如 if let's say you're a 记者 and there is a you know, Nazi, you know, supporters in town and they're doing a 抗议, right? Of course you're going to hate those guys, right? You're going to say, what, you know, I hate those guys. But he said, if you're covering them, you still need to go and talk to them and ask them, what are you proposing? What's your perspective? Why are you protesting? That's your job, is to give a balanced perspective, right? Not just to say, well, I think they're wrong, so I'm going to write the article and say they're wrong. I need to give, we say, a right of reply, you know, how, you know. So that's what the media is also, I think, guilty today, is the media has become very biased, you know. It's, you can tell. Yes? No, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a problem everywhere today. Mm-hmm. Conservative, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Ask questions. Mm-hmm. Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, that's why we need to challenge ideas and ask questions, right? Don't just accept things because people say them. But I think that, you know, going back to Charlie Kirk, I think that's what he was trying to promote ultimately, was let's think about these things. Don't just say you believe something because you believe it, because someone told you to, or your friends believe it. Why do you really do? Is there support for your ideas? You know, tell me why you support those ideas. You know, let's have a debate about those things. And I think that's a problem. I agree it's a problem in America, but I think it's a problem everywhere today. Is people just take their consumers, They take in stuff, but they're not really thinking about it. They're not just, it's like junk food, right? They're just taking ideas in, but they're not really questioning those ideas. And so I think that that's something that we can teach everybody, but especially young people. I think, the young people who are growing up today with technology, they're surrounded by it. And I mean, when I grew up, when I was a kid, we didn't have the smartphones, right? We did have computers, but but we didn't have smartphones. But today we're just surrounded by technology. Everywhere I go, I see these 小孩子, they're like 3、4岁, and they already have their smartphone, and I can see them, and they're scrolling on the phones, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, so I think I'll just the whole thing with Charlie Kirk is a tragedy. It's an American tragedy, and I do hope again that it's a wake-up call for Americans to say, hey, that's not acceptable, and that needs to stop. And that's why I think Americans, the few Americans, I think they're just a few, I don't think they represent, but the few Americans that are celebrating this are being punished, because most Americans are saying that is not correct. That's not right. You can't do that. You can say you disagree with him. You can even say you hated him or disliked him, but you cannot celebrate his death. Because to celebrate somebody's murder is to say that's okay. That's fine. We can kill somebody because they have the wrong ideas or they disagree with me, and that's just not right.
Obama say anything about it?
I haven't heard anything. Yeah.
I know who be COMPASS is.
Yeah. Well, she has her own perspectives. What did she say?
She say leftism is gone.
Leftism is gone. Okay. So and I there are some people that say, well, Charlie Kirk preached hate and therefore he deserves it, right? But that's a stupid perspective, right? Because when somebody says that is hateful speech, I think you're just labeling something, and then you give it's basically becoming a 借口. Remember I said some people say speech is violence? Okay. If you label everything that you disagree with as hateful, then you're not listening to them, right? If you disagree with me and I say you're a hater, you hate, that's just hateful speech, well, then you could say the same thing back to me, right? You could say, well, your speech is hateful, right? So I'm going to punish you. So we can't use those words hateful and or violence. We have to say, okay, what do you think? I want to hear what you think. Let's have a debate. Yeah. Well, Putin's a different story. No, but again, no. I wouldn't celebrate his death, but I would say it's probably. I think it's a different story, because Putin is actually waging a war that's killing hundreds of thousands of people, and so you can't say Charlie Kirk and Vladimir Putin are the same type of situation. If somebody is actually going out, just like if somebody is out there, someone is out there murdering somebody, we hold them accountable, right, for their crime. I think Putin falls into that category. He's attacked another country, and he's waged a war that's cost hundreds of thousands of lives, including his own people, the Russian people. So yeah, it's not like he's just trying to have a debate with somebody. He's actually in charge of a military in a country that's killing lots and lots of people and bringing all kinds of horrible suffering to. So yeah, if Putin were to disappear tomorrow, I'd be like, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people would, but I think again we have to draw a line. We have to say, okay, this is going back to thinking critically about something, right? How do we look at different situations and not say the same? And again, I think this is where now I think Americans are stopping and thinking about that and saying, what do we need to change something here? Yeah. So yeah, one thing I have been happy about, I will say this. After Charlie Kirk's death, and of course things could change tomorrow, but after Charlie Kirk's death, you have not seen a violent response to his death. People are not going out there and saying, let's attack the liberals, let's go out there and beat them up. Of course, there's probably a few people who think that way, but there hasn't been any like violence or people fighting each other. And I think that's because they respect what he wanted. And he said, we need peaceful discussion and dialogue and debate. And that's what he wanted. And so people respect that. And they say, if I were to stand up and start fighting somebody or using violence against him because Charlie Kirk was killed, that would betray his ideas. That would betray what he was promoting, and I shouldn't do that. So yeah, so I know. We'll see. I hope something, it's a tragedy, but I hope something positive comes out of this. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hope it'll have the opposite effect, actually. I hope it'll bring Americans together. There's always going to be those people on the fringe, right, on the edge, who are like celebrating his death and saying, yeah, this is great, we should do more of this. But they don't represent most Americans. I truly believe that. They don't represent most Americans. Doesn't matter if you're on the left or right. I don't think those people represent most Americans. And so I hope that this actually builds a bridge. And that people on both sides of the political spectrum or divide think, yeah, we need to talk more. We need to have more of a discussion and respect each other. Yeah. What? Some will use it positively and some will abuse it. It just, it depends. Some will use it in a positive way and say, we need to go in a new direction. And some will, of course, abuse it. They'll say, no, we'll use this to, get more support or whatever. So yeah, it was a real shock for Americans, I think. It was a real wake-up call for Americans. Yeah. So anyhow. Okay, well, I thought that that topic might come up today because that was a really, really big thing in America this week. And everybody's talking about it. And of course, it's interesting how it's kind of spread outside of America to other countries where people are also talking about it. I heard Charlie Kirk recently was in Japan and Korea speaking as well. So I can see why, in countries like Japan and Korea, they were also paying attention to his perspectives and his ideas. And again, not everybody agrees with him. Some people completely disagree with him, but that's okay. That's fine. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're out of time today, but we're meeting again next Thursday, I believe, right? Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. So I appreciate you all, your flexibility to come in on a Wednesday, and we'll see you next Thursday, for our next class. Okay. Thank you very much.